Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about vaults, specifically the three most important vaults to learn, especially as a beginner. We're going to be talking about the speed vault, the side vault, and the safety vault. And these vaults are the top three that I recommend to learn as a beginner, but also for just practical use because they're so applicable in so many different scenarios. The main reason these are going to be my top three recommended vaults is because they're accessible. They're easy to learn. It doesn't take a ton of time or energy to learn these vaults, but that doesn't mean they aren't practical. In fact, these are probably the most practical vaults you can learn. There are other vaults that are just as practical, and we'll talk about those too later on, but they're a little more difficult to learn, so we're not going to jump into those just yet. Anyway, let's dive into the video. Let's take a quick look at what these three vaults are and what the differences are.
So we'll break these down in more detail later, but let's just take a quick look. The first one's the safety vault, where I step onto the object I'm going to vault and then bring my other leg through. This is a really simple vault to learn. The next one's the speed vault, where I'm actually going to do the same thing, I'm just not going to touch it, I'm going to kick that leg back. The third one is the side vault, where I'm actually going to use two hands and bring both legs over the vault simultaneously.
The cool thing about these vaults, as you'll see, is that they actually stack on each other. That's another reason why I really like them. So now let's talk about the differences between each type of vault, as well as step-by-step how to complete each one. So the first thing to go over when it comes to all vaults ever is that you actually don't want to try to make contact with what you're vaulting until after your feet have already left the ground. So in the beginning, it's okay to have a little bit of contact before you actually jump off the floor or off the ground, because you're learning and you want to make sure you're practicing safely. But as you progress, you want to try to take more and more time off the ground before you actually make contact with the object you're going to vault, because that's going to mean that you're going in a straighter line. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So if parkour is about going from point A to point B as fast as possible, well, we all know that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the closer you are to that straight line, the less you're going to be adding distance into your travel. How does that apply to vaults? Well, if I stand right here, I have to jump up into the air before I'm able to actually clear this object I'm going to go over. Whereas if I jump from back here, my arc goes at a straighter level. So instead of having to stop all my forward momentum, regenerate that into upward momentum, and then go straight down and then forward again by taking off from farther away, I'm able to carry a lot more momentum with me as I move in through the next area I'm running through. So key takeaway is we're going to jump up before we touch our object. But for the sake of these drills, I am going to have my hand on the object just to show you more in a slower motion, because it's hard for me to float in slow motion. I'm just not very good at it. Number one, safety vault. Safety vault is the first vault everybody should learn, in my opinion. Now, you can do whatever you want, but I would recommend starting here. The first thing we're going to do for learning the safety vault is we're going to put our hand on the object. So the first thing we're going to do is put our hand on the object we're going over. The next thing we're going to do is take the opposite leg and bring it up just like that. That's just a good kind of warm-up drill. Once you're comfortable with that, the next step is to actually jump and make contact on the object you're going to go over. What's going to happen next is you're going to take that opposite leg, the one that's not on the object, and you're going to bring it through the gap between your top leg and the object you're vaulting. That leg is going to be the first one to touch the ground. Important to note here, everybody has a side that they're going to like vaulting on better than the other. The way that I teach my students to figure out what that is which leg would you kick a soccer ball with? If you would kick your soccer ball with your right leg, then jump off of your left one. Reason being, your non-dominant side is generally stronger, whereas your dominant side is more precise. So by swinging this leg, you're more likely to actually go in the direction that you want and not accidentally kick the object you're trying to go over. The other advantage is with your non-dominant leg being stronger, you're more likely to get more lift. So I jump up in the air, make contact, bring my non-dominant leg through and down. Now, before we move on any further, the other thing I want to make sure that we take away from this video is that in everything that you do when it comes to running or ninja or parkour or OCR or whatever, generally speaking, if you're trying to move forward, that's where you want to look. You don't want to try to look down. Looking down is going to mean that you're more likely to go down. So as you're doing these movements, try to keep your chin up, your back straight, and your eyes forward. Now that we have that down, let's talk about the speed vault. Literally the only difference between what we just learned and what we're about to learn is that whatever leg is going up is now not going to touch what you're vaulting. Instead, it's gonna kind of kick back, and that's going to accelerate your other leg coming forward and over the object. And the next part I'm about to talk about is something that I think is super cool that I haven't heard anybody else talk about yet. So let me know if this is cool to you. So going back to what we talked about earlier, with you want to try to get as close to a straight line as possible so you can carry as much momentum as possible. That means the less you have to jump up, the more likely you are to carry that forward momentum. So here's where we can get kind of sciencey and make it even more efficient and less of a jump style maneuver. So if you watch when I vault, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually kind of dropping my head off to the side as I lift the opposite leg. So whichever leg I'm lifting up, I'm dropping my head down. I'm not dropping my eyes, I'm not dropping my chin, not changing the shape of my posture. I'm just dropping my head to the side. And what that does is it causes me to rotate in the air. So rather than having to jump straight up and have to push really hard down on this to generate more lift, I'm able to kind of bypass the need for that by elevating my hips and dropping my head simultaneously, making it easier to clear the object. The last vault we're going to talk about in this video is the side vault. The side vault is an awesome beginner vault. Honestly, a lot of people jump straight to the side vault before they learn the safety vault. I personally prefer teaching safety vault first, but hey, you do you. So the side vault is kind of the go-to for a lot of beginners because it has the added security of using both hands to support you on whatever you're vaulting over. And there's really not a whole lot to explain here with this one. What you're going to do is you're going to put both hands on the object and you're going to take both legs off to one side. That's really it. The downside of the side vault is it does require more pushing if you get closer and closer, because the closer and closer you get, the more you're going to have to generate that upward lift manually because you can't carry that rotation from jumping farther away. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to start with my hands on and demonstrate one where I do it kind of beginner intro style, and then I'll do another one where I show you kind of the more advanced version. Pick which side I want my hands on. My legs are going to go the opposite way. Hands are on the left side, means our legs are going to the right. That's it. Now we're going to do it a little more advanced. The biggest difference you'll notice between doing it fast and doing it slow is that when I do it slow, it requires more of a effort pushing down to elevate my body and having to do more of an actual like upward jump. Whereas when I do it fast, there's a lot less pushing. You may have even noticed a little bit of a bend in my arms when I went fast over it, because I didn't have to generate that upward momentum by using my brute strength. Instead, I just carried momentum, tilted my body, kind of slapped it on the way across. Some of you may be thinking, awesome, now I know what the steps are to be able to do these vaults, and I know how step by step how to break it down. But how do you actually practice these? How do you drill these, right? I'm big on drills. We talked a lot about drills in the past, where you take a big move, you break it into small moves, you practice those independently, and then you put it all together. Well, good news is I've got a vault workout that's exclusively drills and technical training, as well as some like kind of supportive training for connective tissue and stuff like that, that I'm gonna include for you at the end of this video. So thank you for sticking around and enjoy the workout. Let me know what you think.